If that deadline is not met, the UAW says more workers could walk off the job.
Right now, demonstrators are picketing at a Ford plant in Wayne, Michigan, a Stellantis plant in Toledo, Ohio, and in Missouri at the GM plant in Wentzville. But expanding these targeted strikes could have a real impact here in Kansas City.
We're talking about the Ford plant in Clay Como and the GM plant in KCK. There are more than 9,000 employees between both locations. And to be clear, we don't know how many of those employees are members of the union.
Right.
Let's get to KSHP 41 News reporter Marlon Martinez joining us live in the newsroom now. So, Marlon, good morning. What do we know about the negotiations? How far apart are they still?
Hey, good morning, guys. The UAW National.
We're getting a new look this morning at the plans to build that park over 670.
Yeah, KSHP 41 News reporter Claire Bradshaw live for us this morning near downtown to show us what planners have in mind. Claire, good morning. We were talking about this yesterday, Lindsay and I, about we keep taking this shot, and it's still almost hard to imagine what this could look like.
How amazing.
All right, 524 this morning. Visit KC will hold its annual Tourism Outlook event tonight, celebrating what has been a massive year for tourism in Kansas City.
It's only September, but let's look back, shall we, on some of the big events Kansas City has had.
Of course, the Super Bowl parade was tied to that recently, specifically some of the dollar amounts.
Yeah, so the original projection was $100 million. Kansas City, they say, brought in $164 million, $108 million in direct spending.
60% of that direct spending went to hotels, accommodations, 18% to food and drinks while people were here.
The rest divided among business services, transportation, retail, recreation. We checked back in with some of the businesses to hear the impact from their perspective. KSHP 41, your home of the Chiefs. The team's going to be back at practice today.
We expect to hear from head coach Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and some other players today ahead of that practice. We'll be sure to ask how they're preparing for this week's game against the Chicago Bears. Obviously, kickoff for that at 3:25 this Sunday at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, the Kansas City Monarchs, by the way, just one win away from another championship title.
How about that? The team beat the Chicago Dogs 9-6 last night. If they cheap beer and hot dogs, too.
That's right.
Plans to put a park over I-670 just south of downtown KC.
Our Claire Bradshaw is live there this morning. She's got an update on those plans coming up at 5:35 because we have some new renderings to show you.
It's 5:30. Okay, we have an update for you on the plans to turn this part of 670 into
ta-da!
A park.
We're hearing from the people who live in the area to get their thoughts on what that could look like.
But first, today, it's day 6 of the United Auto Workers strike. Demonstrations continuing across the country in Wayne, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, and just down I-70 in Wentzville, Missouri.
We have been amplifying the voices of those people on the picket lines since the strike began last Friday, as well as hearing from people locally who are already feeling an impact.
And that could be a whole lot more people, even here at home, potentially, if a deal between the UAW and the big three, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, does not get reached by the Friday deadline the union has set. Let's get to our Ray Daniel at the GM plant in KCK, the Fairfax Assembly Plant, one of 2 local auto plants right in our community, employing thousands of UAW members. Such glorious weather lately. Let's check in meteorologist Lindsay Anderson. Dry today?
Dry today, actually. The rain chances are going to miss us to the east, so we can see some clouds associated with the nearby rain, but no raindrops to be concerned about today.
Now, you early morning runners out there, think about the new route you could have to run in the next few years. Kansas City, another step closer to covering I-670 with a green space.
A park over this whole thing, right? Planners released new renderings of the South Loop project at a public meeting last night. KSHP 41 News reporter Claire Bradshaw live with what is in this plan now, how residents feel about this. This is just such a wild concept, Claire.
United Auto Workers strike, but local unions still haven't started walking the picket line.
That's because the UAW president set a deadline, 11 a.m. our time on Friday, to reach a deal with the big 3 automakers. And if that doesn't happen, they'll be calling more workers to walk out of more plants. And that could include the GM plant at Fairfax Assembly in KCK and the Ford plant in Clay Como in the Northland. Local businesses say they'll back those workers if they do.
All right, Deja, thank you very much. The Federal Reserve will meet to decide whether or not to once again raise interest rates today. They'll be watching, or will be watching, for what they decide. The Fed, as you know, has raised rates in an effort to curb inflation. And one of the places we're feeling that the most is at the gas pump right now still.
According to AAA, the average price for a gallon of gas in Missouri is $3.66. On the Kansas side, it's $3.73. So last month, it was $3.62.
Major changes there, and you really can feel it every time you go to the pump. Right, we start there this morning, day 6 now of the strikes against the big 3 U.S. automakers.
And, still Also, our local plants not on strike yet.
Right.
More plants could be called up to strike as early as Friday. So the UAW National President, Sean Fain, announced that he's going to release a statement at 9 a.m. Kansas City time.
This, of course, prior to Friday's 11 a.m. deadline, our time, for more workers to walk out of the job if agreements are not in place.
There are Hinsville, Missouri. That one specifically could end up having an impact at our GM Fairfax assembly plant in KCK.
A part made there is needed to make the vehicles here in KCK. In the latest update from GM, they said there was no change yesterday. They plan to run all day. So let's get to KSHP 41 very much. We talk a lot about drives there with Deja. Imagine what your walk would look like coming through here. This is a drive right now, but it could feel very, very different in a few years.
Walking over the interstate, a reimagined park full of green space, trees, an amphitheater, walkways for all of KC to enjoy. Over 670.
It's a great thing for our city, and if you love Kansas City the way I do, you should support it completely.
So it might take a bit more time, more money to get there.
KSHP 41 News reporter Claire Bradshaw live for us.
A little bit. How much have they already funded? Solely coming out of tax dollars. We'll get into that
All
as well.
questions we're going to answer moving forward. We got a lot of time to do that.
All right, 6:08 this morning.
Visit KC will hold its annual Tourism Outlook event tonight, celebrating the monumental year Kansas City has had tourism-wise. It's been quite, we're not even done yet.
Nope.
It's been quite the year.
We're only in month 9, right? September. We wanted to look back on some of the big events Kansas City had. It was a busy spring.
Of course, the year got started the way we all hoped it would. After a Super Bowl win in Arizona, the city hosted its second parade in the last 5 years on a very cold day in February. Glad to have several thousand of our closest friends there with us.
And then later in February, we opened the new terminal at KCI. A long time coming. That, of course, the first place people see, our doorstep to our city.
Basketball fans traveled from all over the country to watch the Midwest Regional Games in Kansas City. The city got a chance for sort of dry run before the NFL draft came the next month in April.
Taylor Swift brought her sold-out Eras tour to GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium in July. Lots of Swifties from around the country. We talked to international fans that came to KC.
Who didn't even have concert tickets.
No.
They were just here for the merch.
And then we heard from so many local shops who came up with their own merchandise, and people came to buy it.
So we're not skipping the draft. It was the biggest event of the year the city worked on for years to bring here. So let's actually talk more about that. We learned about some of the dollars tied to the draft just recently.
The original projection was $100 million. Kansas City brought in $164 million, $108 in direct spending.
And Visit KC will announce their outlook at 4 o'clock this afternoon for what's next. We'll push out updates whenever we get those, but we're all excited about what could be coming down the pipe in Kansas City.
Big year to top.
No kidding.
Oh, wait, the World Cup's coming. All right. Hey, championship baseball happening right here in Kansas City.
The Monarchs one win away tonight from another American Association championship, their third in 6 seasons.
Morning talking about the strikes continuing against Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis.
Our plants here in KCK, the Fairfax District, and Clay Como have not been added to that strike list just yet, but that could happen as soon as Friday if contract negotiations between the union and the automakers are not improved. Right now, KC will hold its annual Tourism Outlook event tonight, celebrating the year we have had for tourism here in Kansas City.
And what a year. I mean, it's
time.
already only September, but we have so much to talk about still. Want to look back on some of the big events KC has had.
We kicked off the right in Kansas City. So that Visit KC Outlook starts at 4 o'clock at the Midland Theater today.
So we'll be there. We'll push out updates to the KSHP 41 app and our website too. Hey, the Monarchs one win away from winning another championship.
And you can go and watch them win tonight. Coming up at 6:55, we've got details on that. And
today is day 6 of the UAW strike against the big 3 automakers.
As you know, our local plant's not part of the strike just yet. More workers are expected to go on strike as soon as Friday if the parties can't come to a deal.
Yeah, with more than 9,000 UAW workers just in the Kansas City area. If workers go on strike here, this will have a major impact on our economy, which is why we are dedicating time to this every day.
Yeah.
Wayne, Michigan, Maggie, thank you.
And she'll have more on the Today Show coming up in about 8 minutes here on KSHP 41. She mentioned, and so did we, the Wentzville, Missouri plant that is striking. That plant could have a major impact on our plant, GM, in KCK.
But in the latest update from GM, they said there was no change yesterday. They plan to run all day.
So as part of our team coverage now, let's get to KSHP 41 News anchor Ray Daniel.